And it has made a tremendous difference that those sluggish cells, those sluggish mitochondria, which the genetic testing had showed is an issue, um, all of a sudden it's getting this powerhouse of oxygen to be able to function better.
Kathy, how did you find Carnivore?
I want to start back a bit because it was along the way that a lot of different things were tried. So, and it'll give a better picture of how I came to it. So I grew up on a farm, and we ate according to the Canada Food Guide, which is basically the standard Western diet, and except so meat, potatoes, veg, fruit. We grew a lot of our own fruit and vegetables. We got our meat because we lived in a farming community. There were, you know, when people were butchering something, they'd ask all the neighbors if they, wanted to buy, a half a beef or whole pig or something like that, and threw it in the freezer, and then we always had a good supply. But we also ate a great deal of cookies and cakes and cupcakes and candy. There was just always candy around. So sugar was a strong thing in our lives. I There was trauma in my early life, which resolved by the age of 6, and that's a factor that I discovered later, like just recently, that can be a factor. I've had occasional difficult times since then, but nothing traumatic. As an example, by the age of 10, I was doing all the cooking for the house of 6 because my mom was sick. So I did that. In my teens, I was a high-end long distance runner. I had Olympic class times, so I was very fit. I had scoliosis discovered when I was 16 from an injury when I was 12, back injury. So I went on, did weightlifting to help with that, and my younger brother, was into it anyway. So the two of us would weightlift. But by the time I was 17, it was discovered that I needed a back brace for a period of time. So like about a year, I think. But then everything was better enough that I could, between the weightlifting and the physio and the back brace, I was able to get rid of the back brace. Um, Late teens, early 20s, I discovered I was allergic to pork, yeast, and corn. So that's a fair bit of, you know, um, a fair number of things to be allergic to. So I ended up eliminating these things from my diet. My family was always meat eaters. We ate pork a lot because we lived on a pig farm, and we rented the house and gardens and things from the pig farm, but we could get pork discounted, and it's always been the cheapest meat. So, or well, now chicken, I suppose, is, but pork was always a cheap meat. So we my sometimes we ate wild game that my grandfather caught, fish also that he caught. We didn't eat a lot of fish, but mostly what grandpa caught. So we, except for the sweets, we had a really clean, balanced diet. When I was in my teens somewhere, my uncle brought home these um, uh, bought cookies, and they were mostly oatmeal with jam in the middle. And I tasted them, and they were awful. They were like, there was a flavor to them that wasn't in our regular um, homemade cookies. And uh, I never liked, I ate store bought cookies, since then, but not very often because I just never liked the flavor of them. And so I've had very few prepackaged foods throughout my life. Of course, in the 60s, there weren't many. So, in my early 20s, because of the corn, pork, and yeast allergies, I thought, well, I'll maybe go vegan. Well, that lasted about a week, and I was so hungry. So I'm like, nope, back to omnivore. Um, at 25, I got married, and I went on birth control pill, and that totally threw off my hormones. And then I started with migraines and imbalances with my period. And I would throw up with the migraines, which is never fun. And my doctor put me on a beta blocker. The first drug was a beta blocker, which lowered my blood pressure much too low. Ended up in the hospital overnight one night because of it. And so went off of that one and then put me on another migraine drug where I gained 50 pounds in 6 months. And it ultimately took me 5 years to get all that weight off. Um, I had been at my optimal weight. I was fit, active, so it was strictly the drug that put up my weight like that. Um, so then uh, the change in lifestyle was that the migraines caused me to miss work and at times, and so I went to a naturopath at that point. My very skeptical of natural medicine physio friend suggested that some of her other clients had found success by going to a naturopath, especially with migraines. So I thought, well, if this skeptic, suggests it, I probably better look at it. And I've been with naturopaths ever since. I always manage to find the MDs that graduate at the bottom of the class, and I've been um, struck off their lists a couple of times because of I'm too difficult a patient, I guess. Not difficult in terms of, challenging them, but difficult to figure out what's going on with me. So, yeah, so I stopped taking any kind of pharma drugs. Um, in my late 20s, I discovered eating fruit for breakfast, and I never really liked cereal anyway, and I had stopped drinking milk. So I just had a very little milk on my cereal, and I didn't like it. I never went for the really sugary ones either. Usually it was Cheerios, which is bad enough, but when I went to fruit, that was good. I enjoyed that, so I started on that ever since that time. Um, but I was still having issues with migraines and digestion. Then in my 30s, I started the Eat Right for Your Blood Type diet, and that seemed to make some progress. I'm an O blood type, so meat is in that grouping, and I enjoyed that, of course. And then, so then, at in late so everything kinda bumbled along about the same at that point. Migraines were a bit better with the naturopath. I wasn't taking, drugs that were toxifying me and, seemed to be doing okay. And so then in late 2001, when I was 40, um, it was a time of extreme stress with a toxic person. I was caregiving for my mother-in-law, and it trashed my adrenals. So now I couldn't work at all because I was just my day consisted of lying on the couch, napping a lot, which I never did. I was the Energizer Bunny in the in the in my early life, very energetic. And now all of a sudden I'm lying there napping in the middle of the day, get up, make meals, go back to the couch, watch TV, whatever. So that was a very big change in my lifestyle at that point. I had because of the adrenals, I had to cut out sugar, coffee, and caffeine and alcohol, and I had it changes your hormones. Yeah, so the adrenals being bad threw me into early menopause. So I was perimenopausal at 40, and uh, I had it drops your immunity. It doesn't give you the right. You can't process minerals the proper way to keep your immunity strong, so that, I caught everything, and, uh, and then a year later, I started having symptoms of ankylosing spondylitis. Um, and so that had been an issue until very recently, actually. Um, and my low back was so painful. There was once I bumped into something, like backing up, I bumped into something and I passed out. The pain was so bad. So that's, yeah, not a good thing. And so that, I was already not doing much and not working. So this didn't, was just an extra complication, just a lot of pain. So at that point, the new naturopath I started seeing told me I had leaky gut, um, and and histamine issues. And I found out later by genetic testing that that was true. And so she put me on the low oxalate diet, and that helped a lot with pain and fatigue. Not too much with the fatigue, it was better, but with the pain, the one winter, the first winter I had the AS, I basically spent it on the couch. And the second winter, once I went on the low oxalate diet, I was able to get up and do things slowly and couldn't expend too much energy, but at least I could get up and do stuff around the house. And she put me on supplements to detox my system. Um, so then that continued along the way. And so by jumping ahead a little, 2013, my marriage ended. And so I'm living by myself in this house, about 2 hours away, I guess. I moved up near my parents, and I managed to buy this house with proceeds from the sale of my home with my husband. And so now I don't get to hear, I'm, it's so sad. I don't get to hear any of the complaining about food, about meals. So I can eat whatever I want and nobody cares. So around 2014, I cut out grains, and so by 2015, I was pretty much low carb. Um, Seed oils were never a big thing in my diet. I It's not that I had heard anything about them being bad for me or anything, but I never liked them. Like I tried a few, like walnut oil and grapeseed oil, and can't remember what else. Sesame oil. So if every once in a while, but I never really liked them. I didn't like the flavor of them. So my go-to was olive oil and snacks, uh, nuts, seeds, uh, uh, fruit once in a while, and plain potato chips. That was pretty much the only the snacks that I had. Um, And then I discovered, well, so with the migraines, because I was throwing up, I at one point realized that my digestion wasn't working when I had a migraine. So why keep stuffing things in when it's not going to be processed anyway? So then I would fast, and then that helped get move the migraine out. And then when I started back eating, I found that meat gave me the least amount of issues, the least number of issues, and then like a goof, I added back these other things to eat the way I had been because I was so ingrained in the Canada Food Guide that well, you're not supposed to eat just meat. You got to eat your. And already I was going against that by not eating grains, right? So I continued to have the migraines. I continued to fast and then meat and then everything else. Um, then after a 2016, after a regular physical at my doctor's, it was discovered that I had blood in my stool. So, oh, you got colon cancer. And I don't know what you've heard about the Canadian healthcare system, but it's glacial. But when they suspect cancer, boy, do they whip you through real quick. So I got an appointment within a month, I think, which is, unheard of in Ontario. And so They did a colonoscopy, didn't find anything, so then they did an endoscopy at the same time, found I had ulcers in my stomach and all through the small intestine. And so it's like, okay, what do I do with that? But I had started to notice that it seemed when I used a fair bit of water that I was it was giving me a lot of digestive pain and everything. And turns out it was the activated charcoal in my filter, in my water filter system. And so then in reading up on that, I realized that for most healthy people, activated charcoal is not an issue. But if you have digestive problems, then it's an issue. And so I've been drinking tap water ever since. Uh, if I'll have to trust the municipal water purification, processes, because that's where I am, because there's no way I'm buying bottled water, right? I drink far too much water for that to be economical. Um, so then at that time, my naturopath also wanted me to do some genetic testing because there was a company that she knew which would take the raw data and tell me things about my genetics and how she could help me with supplements or other modalities. And I did that, found out I have hemochromatosis, which means that my body takes too much iron out of my food. So then I found the list of the iron levels in all my food, and of course, meat, fair bit of iron in meat. So, I was noticing that I love liver, have always loved liver. I couldn't eat it anymore. It was giving me issues. Yeah, it just was giving me issues. And um, when I was 18, my grandpa said to me, he and my grandma were first aid uh, first aid St. John's first aid uh, members, and they volunteered with that regularly. And so when I was 18, my grandpa said, "Okay, you're 18 now. You're going to give blood." And I go, "I am." He goes, "Yes, you are." So he took me, and my iron was very good. They commented about it at my first donation, and uh, and that's what I think has saved me for a lot of years is regularly donating blood, because that's what you do for hemochromatosis, because it takes the iron out of your body and allows your body to remake, blood cells, fresh blood cells. So, since I first got sick when I was 40, I had stopped giving blood, and so when we found out I had hemochromatosis, by then I was having heart issues, liver issues, and starting to have kidney issues. And my naturopath said, "Go give blood." So I said, "Okay." Went and gave blood. Bad experience. I passed out really hard and frightened them, and so they red flagged my file. Not allowed to give blood ever again. They didn't want the hassle, so so I got a diabetes lancet. Even though I don't have diabetes, I got the lancet, and so every once in a while I stab my fingers and bleed myself, and that takes care of everything. Um, so now we get to the major reason. Um, in March of 2020, there was this virus that was seemed to be quite prevalent, and there was a lot of talk about how deadly it was and everything else. And me with my immune system, I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. And so I went grocery shopping and caught it. And so I thought I'll stock up, and I won't have to go out grocery shopping for a while. Yeah, that's when I caught it. And so I was sick for about 3 weeks. The worst of it was I was so tired, even more tired than I had normally been. And uh, but I got over it. It wasn't that big a deal. It never really affected my lungs. Um, so I got over it, and I'm like, okay, that wasn't so bad. Um, and then between March and the end of August, it seemed to me like I had re-caught it, been reinfected 7 more times. I would get, the symptoms from, fever, brain fog, fatigue, the stuffy head, and, cold-like symptoms. And my naturopath said, I don't think you're re-catching it. Your body is kind of keeping it and not getting rid of the artifacts afterwards. And with your immune system being so low, you just can't fight it off. It's like, I don't know. The saying goes, fighting your way out of a wet paper bag. You just don't have the energy. Well, my whole body didn't have the energy. The cells didn't have the energy to shove it out and say goodbye. And so so then I discovered online. I went to Facebook groups that I was a long hauler, and so then they talked about all the different things that you could do to help with that. So the symptoms were significant brain fog, hair loss. Um, I didn't want people to look at the back of my head for a period of time. My left eye got really goopy all the time, and the vision deteriorated in it. Extreme fatigue. My singing voice was gone. My hands and feet were less sensitive to cold and heat. It felt like I had spider webs on the backs of my arms, and a hair at the edge of my mouth, either side. And I gotta have yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's easier for men apparently than women. I don't know. It was just, it was there. It bothered me. um, Sleep disturbances, painful teeth, mouth sores, um, and my rectal nerves stopped working, which was a little challenging. And I had tinnitus, which I still have, but it's much, much improved. It's almost back to normal now. But it was so bad that I couldn't listen to music anymore. It was painful to listen to music. And music, I used to work in the music industry, and I've sung in the choir for many years. So losing my singing voice and not being able to listen to music was very challenging for me. It was, again, another, from being very active to not being active was one adjustment, and this was yet another adjustment. Um, so the thing that made me wake up I don't know, to decide to change my lifestyle or find a solution was that I had low blood pressure when I was asleep, and that is a symptom of long haulers. And I would wake up gasping, and you know, uh, everything looked washed out, and it felt like I had awakened from the dead. And this happened not every night, but regularly, and it was getting more frequent. And I'm like, this has to stop because it may not be that I die, but I don't want to, just in case this is a real issue. It's not a good thing for your blood pressure to be going that low at night while you sleep. So I found the UK Sepsis Trust, and so they've changed their website. I had such brain fog at that time that I don't remember most of the recommendations that they gave, but I followed a number of them. The one that I do remember was, when you're tired, just stop. I've been the kind of person where it's like, oh, I'll just finish this little bit and then I'll stop. And they said, nope, don't do that. Just stop. Let your body recover. So that's what I did. That was one of the things, and it started helping. And by this time, I was pretty much keto. Um, I was eating lamb at the time, not beef. I love lamb, but it's gotten very expensive, so I've switched over to grass-fed beef now. But uh, so I was eating meat, vegetables, and apples for breakfast, like I'd been eating for years. Um, but I started having trouble with veggies in November of 2020. So I thought, well, okay, I'll leave them for a while. And so then I was just eating apples and meat. And so then about a week before Christmas, I was noticing that I would have congestion in the morning, and then in the afternoon I was better. So then the next day, I thought, oh, I'll have to pay attention to when that, like, what might be causing that. Turns out it was the apples. So Christmas Day 2020, I went on the lion diet, meat, salt, water, and I'm still on the lion diet. I don't. I was told by my naturopath not to eat eggs anymore because because of the leaky gut and my immune issues. If I caught something, it would be rather bad. So don't eat eggs. So and I used to really enjoy eggs. I used to have them for lunch. So I will test them again at some point. Dairy dairy hasn't been a thing for me for a long time. Uh, I used to like mozzarella cheese and goat's cheese and things like that, but that's not a thing for me anymore either. So, so anyway, the lion diet works the best for me. I had been researching it for about 9 months anyway. I had seen Michaela Peterson. I was just interested in her podcast, and then somewhere along the way, she started talking about this diet. I'm going, what's that? So then I started researching, found out her father was on it as well, and went, watched all of their videos on that, and so and doing some independent research, I discovered, boy, this would probably work really well for me. So, so I've been following other carnivore channels as well. I've only found you about what 2 weeks ago through uh, just recently. So I was following Sean Baker, and he had Judy Cho on, and I started following her, and I like her the way she gives a lot of data, and she so then through her I also discovered I have CIRS, which is chronic inflammatory response syndrome, because with the carnivore diet I had a lot of improvements. I improved from almost all of my um, my infection, major infection symptoms. Like I said, I still have the tinnitus, but everything else, and the ankylosing spondylitis. Um, if people touched me, I would. Well, my doctor poked my back once, and I just a reflex. I elbowed him in the stomach because it was like, "Don't touch me there," you know. And now it's gone. It's all gone. I had these. They call them beans. They're just like some sort of hard little nodule in the low back, and they're all gone. Um, my I don't have joint pain anymore. I used to have it in my hip, either one or the other at different various times. They're all gone. But I still wasn't improving. My energy levels were still low. So I'm like, okay, what is going on? How can I make this better? And then Judy Cho comes along with this CIRS. So I took there's a visual test you can take, and I took that and I failed it. And so it's like, and I know I have mold in my house. It's a mobile home. Although it's called a 3 season, so I can live here in the winter. It's still, there's a lot of issues with moisture. And even though I go around like a mad fiend trying to get rid of any mold that I see, and I have a dehumidifier. Um, it might be in between the walls and things like this from things that I haven't seen. So and I although I am moving soon, I had to stay in this location, right? Um, Poverty sucks, and I didn't have an option. So, so then and so her treatment, there's just no way I could manage that financially. So, I had also been researching something called um, chlorine dioxide solution, and I studied that a lot longer because it sounds sketchy, but but I started taking that about um, yeah, but not quite 6 months ago, and it has made a tremendous difference that, those sluggish cells, those sluggish mitochondria, which the genetic testing had showed is an issue, um, all of a sudden, it's getting this powerhouse of oxygen to be able to function better, and it was throwing off. So I've always had cold sores ever since, like as long as I can remember. I'm the only one in the family except my mother, and so she probably kissed me one day when I was a baby, and that's how I got it. And um, so, as I was going through or taking the CDS, different symptoms would come up. So I'd go on a round of CDS and then take a whole bunch of vitamin C to help and exercise and that to help get rid of whatever it was uh, detoxifying from. And so then I had this cold sore and it didn't really fully develop. There was the pain and like the bump, but it never burst into blisters and everything. And then it went away. And so I think it was dealing with that at that point and getting rid of it. And but it did a whole bunch of other things. I had issues with my jaw, like a deep infection in my jaw and various things, and it just scoots that all out. And now I have a lot more energy, a lot more strength. And my friend said to me just yesterday, she goes, "This is like the old Kathy before you got sick." And like, so I've been sick for 20 years, and some people only know me as this low energy, always catching, infections and things. So this is wonderful that she's known me longer than that and has seen that uh, change in me. So I would say that carnivore got me almost all the way there. I have been making improvements for 2 years and then kind of have plateaued. And then with the SIRS, that's the next factor, um, to be, to improving my health. And I don't know whether that will be the ultimate thing to get me back to where I was, but I'd like to run again. I'll be 63 soon, and I'd like to run again, but not yet. The one thing I noticed with the carnivore diet is that my bones got thickened and got stronger. My teeth changed shape. It was weird, and there's not that taste in your mouth when you wake up in the morning. And Yeah, I don't. There's not as much plaque or uh, calculus. So, and the muscles, um, they're because of my adrenal issues, I can't exercise all that much. Um, but even without exercise, as I've heard you say before, the muscles just get stronger and better. There's more bulkier. Just recently I've started high intensity training, uh, high intensity interval training, and it's called the 4-minute workout. And I don't do it for 4 minutes because I can't just yet, but I'm working up to that. And I just do it until I can't raise my arms anymore and feel the burn, as the saying goes. And then I stop, and I do that once a day. And That seems to be helping with my overall. I was having problems with my back, um, just feeling a bit of pain in the mid back, and that's almost gone now. So, and it's only been a week. Yeah, this is the second week of doing that. Yeah, so I have high hopes for improving my overall fitness level as well. So, the only other thing is that um, my dad lives in long-term care. He has dementia. He's near the end stages of dementia, and he in September he had some sort of event and went on to pureed foods from minced, and uh, because he was choking on everything. And so the doctor had asked if I could come in and sit with him during lunch. Ordinarily, I would go once a week and sit with him in the morning and visit with him, and then leave at lunchtime, just because there's so much on their menu that I can't eat. And but the doctor had said he would do better if you came and sat with him during lunch. And then you're right there. If he chokes, then the PSWs don't have to, they're busy people and they have a lot of people to feed and take care of. And so I thought, and Dad was always wanting me to stay for lunch anyway. So now I'm eating. I try to eat keto at least. Like yesterday was uh, sweet and sour chicken with fried rice and Chinese vegetables, and uh, and then the other selection was a ham sandwich with beet salad. So, and I can't eat ham, so I chose the sweet and sour chicken. But I asked if I could replace the rice with the beets, because there's no way I'm going to be eating all that rice. And that seems to work well enough. But there are times when I need to fast the next day, for at least a half, like fast from the lunchtime to lunchtime the next day, just to kind of uh, get my system settled down again. But at home, I eat only beef. And I know that this is so now I go 3 times a week and visit with him and eat with him, and, uh, and I know it's just for a time, for a period of time, and I'm 6 feet tall and very skinny, and I'm one of those people where you look at me the wrong way and I'm losing weight, at least even on the keto diet, I would lose weight very quickly. On the carnivore diet, I'm managing to maintain my weight, um, and, um, and it took me a while to get fat adapted at the beginning, but now, I before this, eating with Dad, I was starting to regain weight because I was eating a lot more fat as well, like with my meat, and, that was making a big difference. I was starting to but now, I dropped weight when I first started, again, still in a good range, like, reasonable range, and now I'm still just maintaining my weight. But like I say, this is for a period of time, and once I get back to eating my full diet, then I will, I'll regain weight and be in better shape.
So
Hmm.
just to clarify, or to summarize, so all of the issues that you've been experiencing,
Hmm.
um, Carnivore or Lion cleared up, except for the issues related to SIRS.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And
That's what I would say.
what was the name of um you talked about some kind of medication. What was the medication you were
Oh,
investigating?
it's it's called chlorine dioxide solution. There's Dr. Andreas Kalker. I don't think he's a medical doctor, but um, so he wasn't the one who discovered it, but he has been has been promoting it for quite a few years anyway. But it was uh, a biologist. I believe it was a biologist, James Humble, he was down in the Amazon, and a couple of his uh, guides one of his guides anyway, had gotten sick with malaria, and he had this water purification uh, um, solution, which was this CDS, chlorine dioxide. And so he thought, huh, well, if it clears up stuff in water, and we're mostly water, maybe I'll give it to my guide and see if it works. And it did. It cleared, like the next day, I think it was the next day, he was feeling a lot better. And then the following day, they were ready to slash through the jungle again. And so then he thought, okay, well, then he tested it on a variety of different people, himself and his family, and discovered that it was what it did, how it worked, because he's a biologist, so he understood how it worked. And, yeah, so that's been a big, help for me, and I thought like, at first, I was quite, I don't know, it sounds maybe a little sketchy, but the more I researched it, the more I thought, this might help me, especially with the SIRS, and it has helped a great deal.
So for someone who's suffering so many conditions like you were, if they're watching this now, they might think, "Oh my goodness, I've got to try this. This is my one last hope. I've tried everything else." But probably people watching this in that situation would be thinking, this just sounds like snake oil to me." Because how can just changing one thing in your life kind of fix everything? So, how would you talk to those people?
From my understanding and, through my own experience, inflammation, um, wreaks havoc on our body, and there are things that we don't maybe recognize, especially as we get older, that's inflammation related, and we think it's something else, so we take a pill or whatever, and you're not getting to the reason for your issue. Um, and if you reduce the inflammation that you're putting into your body, um, then that allows your body to recover on its own, and that's what uh, that's the method that carnivore gives you is you're very little there's very little histamine in meat or in any of the animal products, but certainly there's no inflammation causing agents in it at all. So that's what I would say.
Nice. Um, so Kathy, do you have a way for people to get in touch if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, I have the klifelo.locals.com. That's where I've just started it, and I'm going to be uploading stories and things about my diet to that channel. And I have also started a dementia or a channel. It's called dadandIdementia.locals.com, and although the stories about Dad and I, our walk through dementia, will be behind the paywall, I will be posting articles on various uh, dementia related studies and things like this. And one that excites me and wished I could get Dad into is I think it's in the States where they're doing either the whole long-term care facility is being fed keto. I think might be carnivore, but it's uh, I would love to have been able to try that with Dad, but that's just not possible at this point. Um, so yeah, that's where I will be posting some carnivore stuff as well.
Nice. Well, I'll link to those in the description. And
Okay, thank you.
Kathy, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for what you do. It's a good thing for people to hear from those of us who have been helped by the carnivore diet.